Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sovereign Sisters podcast. I'm Angela Atkins, your host this evening, and we've got a lot to unpack as we do a deep dive on what I'm calling the war on food. It really is something that I'm noticing, especially here in the United States, but it encompasses a lot of things. There have been recent fires at food facilities, government actions that have been taken against independent farmers, and there are broader implications about this. Some people say this is part of the Great Reset. So, if it is, what do we do? How do we get through this? So, let's talk about this. This concept of the war on food is a series of events that we see happening day to day, and some are greater than others, and also government policies that have been enacted that appear to target the stability and the independence of our food supply. These include, regulatory actions that have put really undue burdens on small farmers, those independent ones that are trying to do the right thing, mostly the organic farmers. And there have been many instances of unexplained fires at food packing and processing plants. And it raises the question, is this a coordinated effort to control or undermine our food industry? Or is it something else? Are there people that are going to benefit from this agenda? And does that take over the need for the people to have what they actually need? So, if we look through it from the lens of the Great Reset, we think of the globalists who want to reshape the world in their own vision, with their own economies, creating their societies, whether it's 15-minute cities or whatever they're trying to do to limit the people from enjoying life to their fullest. So they look at it that we're just mere, animals or beings that they have to tolerate. And they would prefer to have their own vision of what the world would be: more automation, fewer jobs for people, let the AI do the work, let automated robots take over jobs that can be that were now manually being done. And that causes a lot of chaos in the world, and it really restricts our freedom. And we want to look at how we make this shift from really going where it is now towards more sustainable agriculture, and that we do achieve environmental goals, but not the goals that they're talking about. This whole thing about, carbon and CO2 limits, it's ridiculous. When you're talking about agriculture, farming, if you're trying to grow something, you need CO2. That process involves the plant taking in the CO2 to produce photosynthesis and the chlorophyll to make them green and grow. So if you take it away, what you have are more dead plants. You have fewer trees and fewer things for the animals to eat, and fewer animals for people to eat. And eventually that means fewer people, because there won't be enough sustainable food for us. So if we look at it, that this is not what really the majority wants, it's that small globalist group that think of us as inferior to them, which we are not, and we should never even accept anything that they say as being true. They really could be at the brink of pushing us to the point that there's no return. So we need to jump in and do something about it. We need to be mindful that this is real. This is our life. This is necessary for us to bring forth a sustainable agriculture and taking the responsibility for our own food and for our own well-being. So how did this get started? I think it's been going on for a very long time. And I think it's that slow roll, as people use the example of the boiling frog. The frog doesn't know it's boiling until it's way too late, and then he can't get out of the pot. Well, maybe this has been happening for decades, and many people have said it much more eloquently than I have. But I think we see it, or we began to see it, during the C-19 pandemic. With all the lockdowns that disrupted the supply chain, it really put immense pressure on those who produced food, especially in the agricultural section. It's hard for transportation when there were so many things that you could not do. Initially, we thought these were going to be temporary, but as things began to roll, we saw more and more regulations. We saw government intervention into things that personally I feel like government needs to get out of our food. If we're able to take care of ourselves, we don't really need Big Brother telling us what to eat, how to eat, when to eat. That just is not necessary. But these regulations really started back in 2011 when Obama signed into law the Food Safety Modernization Act, the FSMA, and it gave the FDA this huge amount of control of how foods can be grown, how they can be harvested, how they're to be processed. And while the intent, although it seemed very noble, that it was to improve food safety, these regulations were very heavy handed and it really placed a heavy burden on the small independent farmer because it was kind of a sweeping regulation. It didn't matter what size you were, and the things that were required to be done could be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to meet the regulations to improve the quality that you have. And so independent farmers were probably either taken down, gone out of business, or unable to do it on their own, and they sold out to some big ag company. So it's very unfortunate that something that we thought maybe had a good intent, when you hear about this Food Safety Act, really is not. The intention is not to make it better, but to make it more burdensome, make it more difficult for the independent farmer to do their thing, to grow the way we're supposed to grow, naturally, without pesticides, herbicides, and all the other chemicals that are added, and the seeds to be heirloom or organic, something that we really want to have for the future, for that sustainability. That's what we want. We don't want sustainability of genetically modified foods because they don't offer the nutrition that organic foods do. But in addition to that, during that time, the USDA had this Growing Climate Solutions Act. Again, another bunch of words that to me means nothing, but it's all about that carbon that we were talking about. In order for the food producers to do their thing, they needed to purchase these permits to offset their carbon emissions, all this nonsense that people have jumped through hoops so you can do what you should be able to do anyway, which is grow your own food. But now, again, the small farmer can't afford it to pay for these permits, to do all the things that are being required, but these new acts. So it put them out of business. And what usually happens if the small farmer goes out, some big production company comes in, buys them up, and they become part of, big ag, and they're now part of that corporate control entity. So what happened along the way? Not only did that food war with the small farmer going on, but there seems to be this, and I don't even like using these terms, white hat, black hat, I don't like it, but two factions that are battling against each other. So you don't really know who's doing what for what purpose, but it is causing a severe down chain effect on us and our food production. Think about it. There have been some fires, and I know you all have heard about it. There was a fire at the Tyson's food plant in Kansas City. It destroyed about 15% of their meat production. That incurs millions and millions of dollars. Not saying Tyson's good or bad, but it does have a down chain effect on us, the consumer. And there have been other instances where there were egg processing plants and butter processors, all these things happening that basically what you're going to look for in the store is going to become lower in supply, higher in demand, and prices are going to go up. Because as the demand goes up, the price is going to go up. So it's not only going to affect the farmer, who's unable to produce at the rate that they used to because of the cost or exorbitant, they got to pass it on to the consumer so they can meet what they need to keep in business. So not only with the fires and all the other things going on, destroying these facilities, we now have people taking ridiculous actions against the actual animals. Everybody's heard of H5N1, the bird flu. Well, recently, the Colorado governor, Jared Polis, declared a disaster emergency after one chicken tested positive for avian influenza using a PCR test, which we know doesn't work. It's not a tool for diagnosing any kind of disease. It really only tells you what fragments are there. It doesn't tell you that there's any disease. It doesn't diagnose anything. But the governor did this, and now it's possible he is going to kill nearly 2 million chickens, which is a really drastic measure. I mean, based on one test that was taken from a survey in April of this year. And now they're going to cull these chickens, which is going to have enormous impact. I believe that was Dr. Jane Ruby had said, with one chicken causing this outbreak, this disaster emergency, will really, I think it was 750 million eggs will not be produced, because a hen typically lays one egg a day. So in a year, you have 750 million without eggs. And that's huge. I mean, that's one farm in one county, in one state, and that's a huge impact. There won't be enough eggs to go around. So what does that mean? That means the supply is going to get less, the prices are going to get higher, people are going to have to find alternatives, and who knows what fake food is going to be made. They're always, I mean, the Bill Gates and all the other globalists come out with these artificial foods. They're not real, they're synthetic, so they can't give you the nutrition that a real food product can. I mean, egg is like a perfect food. It's got all the nutrients you need in it, and yet they're going to destroy 2 million, these 2 million chickens just because of one test that doesn't prove anything. But why do they do it? Because that gives the governor more freedom, more, he's got allowed to make these emergency decisions, and it also brings in money to him because it's disaster relief, that he'll get money to actually do whatever they do with it. Who knows what kinds of things they do. To me, I think there's all sorts of underhanded things going on. Not going to accuse anybody of anything, but think about it. Why would you go to such an extent to find one chicken to destroy the entire flock that they have so you can get funding in? Now, why do farmers go along with this? Because they also get paid. I know it doesn't sound right, but the government will say, well, we're going to have to kill your chickens because one of them had the flu, for God's sakes. And they get some sort of lump payment. Well, that offsets them for then, but what do they do in the future? They no longer have their chickens. They've got to start over again. So it really is this no-win situation. Even though they seem to have made something on losing their chickens, they really have lost in the long run because they don't have a sustainable model now. What you have to start all over again with chicks and growing. Even if you can stay in business, that's the thing. It just doesn't make sense to me. And if you'll remember, in a previous podcast, we discussed the plight of Amos Miller. He was the organic farmer in Pennsylvania who was shut down by the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. This is typical. They're trying to stop the people who are doing the right thing, trying to grow and produce food that is pure without adulteration. And they come in with all these regulations and say, you can't have this anymore. And they let the food spoil because you can't touch it once they've, marked their little thing saying, this is bad. You can't do this anymore. And they lock everything up. But they can't do it because the farmers, being again small, don't have the resources. They're not aligned with some sort of big agriculture that's going to help them. They have to do it independently. So it's the community that has to support them. And I know I have friends that do support Amos and are in that area, and I'm very grateful. But this happens in other places. Maybe Amos is one of the preeminent ones that was focused on. But you have to look out for your farmers, your ranchers, your local people growing your food, whether it's produce or animals, and be there and be supportive of them, because this is where it is sustainable. These are the foods that are going to help nourish us, not the foods that they think they want to give us. There'll be no bugs in this household, I can tell you that. So what can we do to combat this food war? First things first, we need to start educating people. I mean, there is so much out there that people are confused about. Commercials lie all the time. That's just what they do. They sell you nonsense facts. You need this because it's good for you. How many of you remember milk does a body good? It just cracks me up. Nobody even thought about what about all the stuff that goes into milk? The cows that are given hormones, the antibiotics, the vaccinations, all this. Nobody thought about that when they heard milk does a body good. And yet, many people bought into the concept. So we need to stop just hearing things and accepting them for what they are. They are marketing materials. They're not necessarily the truth. May have the truth in it, but there's a spin on it. The spin is to get you to buy it. The spin is to get you excited about whatever the latest and greatest is. And because many of us are, consumers at heart, we want the latest and greatest, whatever it is. But God gave us all the things we need on this earth. And so we should stick with that when it comes to nutrition. Food is the basic building block here. Without high quality food, we're not going to be able to sustain ourselves. We need to eat food that is rich in nutrients, not food that has added nutrients. Because when they say they've added it, what it means is they took it all out when they stripped away everything that was there. For example, wheat. Wheat used to grow way high in the sky, and it took a very long time to be able to go to harvest. And now wheat is this little tiny, miniature plant that grows rather quickly. And then they take it and mill it and strip out all the good things. And then when they make your bread, whatever that really is, they add back in what they consider nutrients. Well, that can't possibly be as good as what was naturally made when the plant was grown. So we need to get back to that. We need to really stop looking at food as some sort of comfort or some sort of fun thing. Food is actually a necessity to help us live. We need food to let our cells know what they need to do. Our cells need the information that food supplies. Food says a certain thing, and if it's high quality, nutrient dense food, it tells your body, each and every cell, what the right thing is they need to do. If it's low quality, highly processed, it gets bad information. And so your cells don't know what to do, so they act inappropriately. It could be, first thing they do, they think it's toxic. So what does the body do? It wraps a toxin in fat to protect itself from it. And so people tend to get overweight when they eat highly processed foods. There are other things, obviously, many different kinds of diseases or illnesses that come about. People eating overly processed food have a lot of sugar. I mean, we are just a society that eats way too much refined sugar. And so we have this epidemic of type 2 diabetes. And that can be accounted for by all the foods that have no nutrients, but highly processed. And then you have nothing as far as information that your body is receiving. Your body's not getting told anything other than the fact is, oh my goodness, what do I do with this? Let me hide it in a fat cell, or let me shove it over here, and later that will grow into something else. And so we need to start looking at how we take real whole foods, make them delicious. Most of them already are. We just haven't been accustomed to eating those foods. We've been so inundated with foods that are highly processed and sweet to the taste. We have to learn to like something else. We have to eat so the food now tastes the right way. The food tastes like it's supposed to. I know for a long time I used to say people who love to add condiments and spices and everything to all sorts of food. And I used to say, I really like to eat my food naked. I want to taste what the food tastes like. Yes, I'll season it up to brighten up the flavor. But when you start to learn what food actually tastes like, you learn to lose that need for the sugary taste. Right now, almost everything that comes in a package or a box or is heavily processed has so much sugar of some format, whether it's real sugar, artificial sugar, or something, added to it, sugar, alcohol, something, has such flavor enhanced sugar taste, and it's so sweet. People don't like the taste of normal things because they're so used to that sweet taste. And so it doesn't sit well with people. So we have to learn to start removing that from our diets and start adding in foods. So what do we do to educate people about healthy diets and the biodiversity of our soils? So if we shun away from the processed foods and we start looking at real foods, you need to learn out what the alternatives are. So one of the things that I did recently, actually it was yesterday, went to a farmer's market. And that is really a first step for some people. And we'll talk about it some more. But I want to show you a video about the farmer's market because I think, one, there's a problem, and you'll see that. And then two, there is a solution. Hang on, let me show you. Do you work here? Do you work with this? Is any of this organic?
Chemical free?
Chemical free?
It's everything chemical.
Conventional?
No, this is no organic.
Not organic? Okay. Thank you very much. So as you see, there was a big difference. The big stand had lots of people in it. They were just clamoring over all the farmers' vegetables and everything. And I was like, what? Why is this so packed? And the other place that I showed you, the organic one, was where we were shopping, didn't have as many people. So I was concerned. And I began realizing people think because it says farmers market, that it must be good for you. It comes from a farmer. But as I asked the gentleman at the first stand, is this chemical free, organic? And he says, no, none of it was organic. That they use chemicals on their food, on the crops that they grow. Well, that's a real issue. So, in addition to highly processed food, food that is sprayed is going to be part of what you eat. You can't wash off every bit of every pesticide. And many times that goes into and permeates the actual fruit or vegetable itself. And you're winding up eating, most likely, glyphosate. Many farmers use Roundup, and the typical ingredient in that is glyphosate. And that can cause serious issues. I personally think that because I have celiac disease and I grew up eating conventionally food with my family, and I think that instead of calling it a gluten intolerance or a gluten allergy, I think it's glyphosate poisoning. I think after a while, your body says, I can't handle this anymore. And it starts causing pain. And that's the way the body tells you it's not good for you. So instead of just saying, oh, let's go to the farmer's market, let's go to the farmer's market and start asking questions. Like I said, the first thing I said, is it organic? And then chemical free? And there's other ways of asking. Is it pesticide free? Is it non GMO? It doesn't always have to be certified organic because in the United States, especially, certified organic is a government method of making you comply with all sorts of regulations, and it puts you under their control again. If you're certified organic, then you have to follow all their regulations, pay all their fees. It becomes kind of a nightmare for many people. So we prefer saying chemical free. And with somebody who's raising animals, we want to know if they're sustainably raised. What have they done? Do they give them hormones? Do they give them antibiotics? And if you don't ask these questions, you don't know, because they're not going to tell you up front. Now, the one sign that said, when you saw the One Straw Farm, it said certified organic. We spent a good time talking with them. I wish my video would have worked, but it was a very hot day and my camera was just not working very well. And I found that listening to them made me realize these are people who are dedicated to providing people with the best food that they can. So as a consumer, I'm willing to travel a little further to get what they offer. Now, fortunately, this farmer's market was local, and so I would keep going back to buy from them. But there are many of these farmers markets all over the country. But as I said, not many people are asking the right questions. Are you going out and saying, is your food organic? Do you use non-GMO seeds? Do you use organic practices? You need to start questioning those things, because they're not going to offer them up to you if you don't ask for them. And I know in the past, I have gone to other farmers markets several years ago, and I asked, and the gentleman who ran it said, "Oh, we get food from all different places, and we don't know their practices." Right there's a red flag. If he doesn't know, then more than likely, it's not going to be all organic, because that's a selling point. And that's the key issue here. If we as consumers start going out and saying, we demand organic food, we won't eat your processed, we won't eat your chemically sprayed, we won't eat your animal that have hormones or antibiotics, we're just not going to do it anymore, and we don't buy from them, we're voting with our wallet, basically. We're saying, we're taking our money where the good stuff is. But because these people, and again, I think it's a lack of education in nutrition, not a lack of education overall, but they just have never been taught what good nutrition is. Simply saying, let's go to the farmer's market doesn't equal let's get really good food. So I think my main point here is start asking questions. And for those food producers, whether they're at the farmers market, whether they're at the local corner setting up their own stand, roadside stand, just ask them. I ask everyone that I go to, whether it's one that I've gone to for years or a new one, I ask them, is this organic? And if they say, well, we're not certified organic, but we have, a chemical-free process, and they're willing to tell you all that stuff, then that's great. That's fantastic. That's worthwhile. But if they shy away from, well, I don't know, I don't, we can't really do that here or whatever, or they don't know, or they're not willing to share with you. I mean, we were fortunate that this gentleman told us, yeah, they use chemicals on their products. Well, we just turned around and walked out. But so many people don't even think about that. They don't think that the spray used on the food is going to do any harm to them. Everything you ingest is going to do something, good or bad. If it's high quality, nutritious food that's been raised in the proper way with no pesticides, no harmful ingredients, your body's going to get a good response. But you start or continue to eat those foods that have harmful ingredients, that have pesticides and herbicides, and God knows what else they put on these things to get them to not have bugs or whatever. I go handpick bugs off of my plants. But I know you can't do that on a large farming thing. So you have to learn how to responsibly create good quality food that doesn't have harmful ingredients for your customers. So not only does it mean the farmers markets are where you have to question, there are also CSAs, community supported agriculture. This is where a farm or farmers get together and they bring their wares to the public on a regular basis, meaning you buy into it at the beginning of the season. Let's say they'll say, we have so many shares, and that share means you get so much food each week for whatever the duration of their CSA lifetime is. Some are 20 weeks, some are more, over the course of summertime usually. And then you pay up front, so you get your share every week. Now, again, CSAs, it's a chance you take. You're saying, I'm willing to support you, my local farmer, even if you have a bad season. Now, obviously, that's not what they want. It's not what you want, but it can happen. There could be too much rain, not enough sun, whatever happens. But you've participated in supporting the local farmer to continue doing the right thing. They're not spraying their food, they're not causing harm in any way. But you also have to ask at CSAs. I have found this to be true, that if it's not their own produce that they're selling, if they say, oh, we also get stuff from other people and we sell them at a roadside stand or something, you ask them also, are these also chemical free? Because not everybody's going to do that. And for the life of me, I don't understand, if you're running a chemical free farm, why you bring in other people's conventional products. It doesn't make sense to me. I would think, as far as an integrity as a farmer, I would want to have everybody to have the same concept of farming as I do. But I understand from a business perspective, customers want certain things. You don't produce that, so you go to another farm that does. And maybe there isn't another farm locally that can supply you with the organic produce that you're looking to supplement yours with. But I still, as a consumer, would ask. I can't tell you how many times I've walked away, even from my own CSAs. I've been members of CSAs now for more than a decade. And if I know their food is done the right way, I will definitely buy it and use it. But if they're bringing in other people's food, I then question it. And if it is organic, I will buy it. I will supplement theirs. They're making money on it too, so I want to support them. But if it's not organic, if it's not chemical free, if it's not raised appropriately, I'm not going to participate. You don't get my money in order to do the wrong thing. So I'm really encouraging you. You have to start speaking with your wallet. Instead of saying, oh, that looks really good, I'm going to get some, say, is that organic? Or is it chemical free? Was it raised without pesticides? And then make your decision. Because if you just go ahead and continue buying this stuff, that's what farming is going to become more and more of. And now it's predominantly conventional, and we're just shifting back to the organic, sustainable farm. And in my opinion, government that gives subsidies to these huge agricultural farms that grow just volumes and volumes of conventional products, they get subsidies. So that's why their costs can be so low. It costs them pennies to make things that it costs many dollars for an organic farmer to do. So they don't really need you to buy or not to buy. They don't care. They're going to get their money from the government. But if you stop buying altogether, if you say no to conventional food, if you say, I'm not supporting you at all, and we do it en masse and not just one at a time, they'll get the message. Because the more you demand something, the more they get supplied with the things that the customer wants, because they know that's where the money is. How come in recent years we got so many gluten-free products? Because customers began saying, are your products gluten-free? And the more buzz you get about that, the more the market becomes open to that. So you go to the farmers, you go to the farmers markets, you go to the CSA, the ranchers, and ask, how are you raising your food? How are you raising your animals, your plants? How are you giving them the best care so we can get the best food? And I think that's really important, to support the local farmers and ranchers who prioritize animal welfare and sustainable practice. That's the key point right here. Whether it's a CSA, a farmer's market, the guy down the street just trying to make a go of it by growing food in his yard, whatever it is, if they're doing the right thing, we should support them. And that's really the important part that I'm saying. Now, I know people can't buy everything from a CSA or a farmer's market, so they're relying on the grocery store. And in the grocery store, you have another issue because more and more grocery stores are doing things without telling you. One of the latest things, I'm certain you've all heard about A-Peel and whatever the other ones are called, Epi-Peel, I can't remember, that are coating the fruits that you cannot wash off and that it permeates into the food. And we have no idea, there's no studies into what that does to the food or to the person who's eating it, because people like pretty fruit or pretty vegetables. They don't want the ugly ones. The ugly ones are just as nutritious as the pretty ones. So we have to get over that mental hump there. But we need to stop going to grocery stores that do things like spray your food. It looks like they're misting the vegetables, and it looks so fun. Just spraying. It's not water. They're not spraying water to keep them crisp. There is a product called Produce Max, and it is an antimicrobial spray. Think about that for a second. I mean, how many times have you walked in and not thinking, put that antimicrobial crap on your hands because you thought you had to, wash your hands? That stuff does no good for anybody. All that does is clear off the oils that protect you on your hands. So the next time you touch something, you pick up the germs or whatever it is. You picked up bacteria because now you have no oil to protect your skin. So think of what this Produce Max is. And it's from a company called ChemStar. I couldn't make the name up if I tried. So I looked up the ingredients on it. It's primarily hypochlorous acid. That is a chlorine oxo acid. Believe me, I'm not a chemist, but I looked up so I'd understand what it was, and I wanted to have you understand too. The active form of chlorine in water. How many of you want to drink or eat that? Yeah, it doesn't sound good to me either. So its primary ingredient is a chlorine. Now we're trying to get that out of our waters. For many people, we filter our water to get the chlorine out. Why do you want it sprayed on your fruits and vegetables? I don't know. So here's its role in spraying it. Again, it's a lot of scientific terms. Let me try to break it down for you. It's a human metabolite, meaning it works with the metabolism. An acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. So again, I looked all these up to make sure I would understand. They're chemicals whose primary function is a toxic effect to block the normal breakdown of the neurotransmitter acetylcholine. Why would you want to block the neurotransmitter? Doesn't sound good to me. And then there's a glutathione transferase inhibitor, and that inhibits the protection of the cellular membranes. So all in all, when you're going shopping for food, you have to be careful. I looked up the safety data for this also, and it has a warning on it. So it's spraying freely all over your fruits and vegetables, but don't get it in your eyes. That's terrible. Obviously, you can get water in your eyes, but you can't get this Produce Max in your eyes. And if it gets on your skin, you have to wash it off and wash contaminated clothing. They call it contaminated. It's not just covered, it's contaminated. You have to rinse your hands or skin or whatever for 15 to 20 minutes and call poison control or see your doctor. So to me, that says there's something not right about this product if you can't put it on your skin. I can stick my hands in water, even water that comes through the tap and does have chlorine and those things, and it's not going to cause such an irritation that I need to rinse my hands for 15 minutes and call poison control. This is something toxic. So what are the other solutions? If you don't go to the grocery store, if you're not near a CSA, if there's no farmer's market nearby, you can grow your own food. And everybody said, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do that. Yes, you can. You just start small. And once you are successful, it will be empowering. I know that's the way I started. I started with hydroponics indoors and started one thing at a time. And it grew, and it grew. And not only do I have hydroponics in bins, I now have a tower that has hydroponics in it. And all it does is take a little bit of your time It's much better to me to watch food grow than to watch television. So I'm thrilled every day to go and look at it and see it blooming. Start small. Start with one head of lettuce. Grow lettuce and see, oh my goodness, it tastes better than anything else. You're growing it in purified water. You certainly want to filter your water. You want to give it the best nutrients you can so it grows. And it takes a couple of weeks and you have a head of lettuce. You've got a salad. And as you learn how to do this and you build upon it, you learn how to grow in increments. And so you always have one following the one that you've already used. So it's not difficult to do it. And you can do that all year round. It's not relying on good weather. But when there is good weather, you can grow outdoors. And literally, it doesn't take much. I, for a fact, started out as completely novice trying to garden. Just stuck some seeds in and watched them grow and then learned from it and said, oh, we need to do this with this, and started reading some books and getting really interested. And you may not be as interested in growing food as I am, but I literally feel like I'm watching a miracle happen. A seed in dirt, and all of a sudden a plant grows and then fruit or vegetables on that plant. To me, that's truly a miracle, and I love watching it. I have not only just plants, I feel like I have friends in the garden that I go in and I talk to because they're so magnificent. And because I've learned in the past, I talked to Matt Roski, and I've interviewed him before and taught me about electroculture, which was a great eye-opening thing for me. And I've got electroculture in my garden, and I'm getting 10-inch cucumbers and 12-inch zucchinis, and it's fabulous because once you feel the joy of raising your own food, it's kind of infectious. You want to do some more of it. So don't shy away from that. And maybe in the future, I'll do a whole podcast just on hydroponics, just to show you how easy it is. But I think the ultimate thing I want to tell you about is this has to be something you want to be aware of. You want to make your friends, your families aware of what you've learned. You want to raise that awareness, and you want it to be transparent when you go to the CSA, to the farmer's market, to the grocery store. I guarantee if you go to the grocery store, they have no idea what's raised how. And the only thing you can do in the grocery store is rely on the stickers. Remember, if the little UPC sticker has a 4, begins with the number 4, it's conventionally grown and they've used pesticides or some sort of chemicals on that product. If it's an 8, it's a genetically modified product. And if it's a 9, it's organic. It's the best you can do in a grocery store at this point. Try your best to look for those 9s. You may have to go to someplace different than you normally go to. You may have to travel a little further. But it's your health. It's your family's health. It is worth it. In the long run, when you start feeling better, because if you're eating crap food, you start feeling like crap. It's the honest to God truth. That's how I got to where I am. Only became a health coach when I figured out it was the food that I was eating that was causing me to be sick. So don't go through that. Learn from my mistakes. I relied on the wrong things to get to where I was. But once I figured it out, there was no turning back. I eat primarily organic. You can't get everything organic. You do the best you can. But I think when your body is fortified with as much as you can, it compensates. It is a resilient miracle of a creation. Your body can go through so many things and still survive. Just everything, food, traumas, all sorts of things, and your body's able to recover. Don't beat it down with food that's not sustaining you. So I want to leave you with this message. Everywhere you go to buy food, doesn't matter if it's an individual, if it's a farm, if it's a CSA, if it's the grocery store, demand transparency. Find out what you can about the products. Start talking to the people. Engage in a conversation about, oh, how do you do this? This is great. Do you know of other farms that do this? Do you know of other places I can go? Because then you can learn about where other things that maybe this farm doesn't raise. Not every farm can raise everything. That is very difficult to do, but maybe there's a network of farms. So start asking. Be out there demanding transparency and raising the awareness of yourself, your family, your friends, so that all of us together start getting the food we need and not the food they want to give us. And so we stop the food wars. We win the food wars when we say, we vote with our wallet. You don't get my money if you don't make the food the way that's going to sustain my body for health. You don't want to be sick just because you ate the wrong food. I'm certain we've all had that issue one time or another. We ate bad food and we got food poisoning or an upset stomach or something. We said, well, we're never eating that again. That's how you look at the food that has got chemicals on it. Say, I'm never eating that again, because even though I don't feel it immediately, it may be building up in my system. And then you get to where I was, where all of a sudden I realized, oh my goodness, I've got to go see a doctor, and he determines I have celiac disease. And I think, how did I get here? And the light bulb goes on. It's eating all that food that's been sprayed. So don't take me as an example. Learn. Don't do it yourself. Don't fall into the trap. Be responsible. Ask questions, get the answers, and buy only what supports you, your family, the nutrition that you're seeking, keeping you healthy, and support the farmer that is doing the right thing, because that's really what's important. I know this is a complex issue, and I've tried to scale it down a little bit to the places that I understand and the world that I live in. I don't live in the world of big ag, and I don't have, I don't associate with big farms, because I already know that they're not doing the right thing. So I've stopped. I'm like, no, I'm not going to support you. So even those who have noble intentions and are trying to do the right thing, if they don't follow the right practices, you really should, as the consumer, just say, wow, I'd really like to buy from you, but I really can't buy food that's been sprayed with pesticides, or I can't eat food that's grown from a genetically modified seed because I don't know what that's going to do to me. And it will help create awareness in that person who's producing the food. And maybe in the future, they'll hear more and more about that. And they'll think, that's really what people want. Maybe I should think about that. And I've heard of farmers who've turned their crops over. I think it takes 3 years for your soil to be called organic and free of pesticides. Again, I'm not into big farming, so I don't know. But I really think we need to start doing that. Because if you look at the relationship, if you don't pay attention to what's going on with your food, you're eventually going to wind up, after eating all of that conventionally grown food with pesticides or GMO seeds, you'll no doubt have health issues. And then you'll be a customer of Big Pharma. And it's almost like Big Pharma has a hand in everything. They're aligned with the medical industrial complex and the overreaching government. And that's how the food wars keep on going. And we've got to break that. We as a community have got to break that. You as an individual can start asking the questions, and then start telling your friends to ask the questions, and have them tell their friends to ask the question. This is how it works. This is the call that you have. You tell someone, they tell someone, and it spreads. And then once we stop that, once we break their control, you could be more sovereign, and you'll be making your own food choices. And it'll be known to the food producers that you're voting with your wallet. They don't get your money. So if you demand it, they will supply it. So thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, drop them into the comments. Happy to get back to anybody. Feel free to reach out to me. I hope this has given you some insight on how you can make better decisions about your food. Yes, please go to farmers markets. Please support CSAs, but please ask the questions and get the food that is right for you. It will be a better system that we're in. It will be a better body that you will build. Your cells will love you for it, because they're getting the right information, and they will grow and flourish. And you will too. It will not be so difficult in the end. Ultimately, you will know that you've done the right thing because you will feel better, your family will feel better, and ultimately it won't be that difficult. And maybe you'll start growing your own food too, and you'll find satisfaction in that. And even if you don't, just know it's not difficult. Just start today. Start with one thing. Stop buying one thing that you know that is grown with pesticides or some sort of herbicide, and say, I'm not buying this anymore. I'm going to replace it with this. Or I'm not going to this store anymore because they spray Produce Max on their vegetables and I'm not buying them anymore. Vote with your wallet. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today. I hope you just stay informed and stay curious. Until next week, I'll see you.